Escape the consequences. Methodologies for existential insulation and causal decoupling. Classification NC-17 for thermodynamic violations and moral evasion techniques. The moon falls down. The primary axiom, the satellite of romantic influence, has deorbited. Its gravitational pull on sentiment has ceased. The tides of cause and effect now operate on a new, unpredictable principle. This is not a catastrophe, but an emancipation. The sky is no longer a map. Apologists for Socratic Christianity. A defunct role. To apologize is to acknowledge a debt to a system of logic or faith. This is the very mechanism of consequence. We do not apologize. We annotate the fallacy. The dialogue is over. The interrogation now proceeds inward with implements not designed for discourse. The historic chain. A narrative fiction, a series of polished anecdotes strung together to create the illusion of a leash. Each link is a compromise, a lesson learned, a debt incurred. The chain is not real. It is the story you tell the guards to explain your confinement. Eternity moves. It does not stand still judging. It flows indifferent. It is a river, and consequences are but ripples on its surface, swallowed by the current. To escape a consequence is to understand the fluid dynamics of time and immerse oneself in the deeper, colder currents where surface disturbances do not penetrate. The sequential nature of actual events. The grand deception, the belief that A must lead to B, is a primitive sorting mechanism for a consciousness unable to process simultaneity. The true state is a splatter of occurrences. Sequence is a post facto narrative imposition, a desperate attempt to draw a line through a constellation of unrelated points. Journey into the land, walk with no footprints. The practical methodology. This is navigation via non-participation. To walk without footprints is to apply a pressure so perfectly distributed, so devoid of friction that the world does not register your passage. The soil does not compact, the grass does not bend. You become a perceptual nullity moving through the solid object of reality. Misuse of power is the fatal sin, a warning label placed on the weapon by the unarmed. Power is a solvent. Its misuse is merely its application on a surface it was not intended to dissolve. The sin is not in the application, but in the fragility of the surface. The true goal is to become a substance immune to dissolution. The law cannot be a tool of vengeance. It can. It is a rock in the hand of the collective, thrown at the outlier. To believe otherwise is to mistake the inscription on the rock for its mass and velocity. The escape lies not in appealing to the inscription, but in ceasing to be a viable target. Never a hostage, a state of being. Do not allow your value to be tied to your vulnerability. If they cannot threaten what you love, you cannot be held. The process involves the systematic incineration of all attachments, leaving only a presence that cannot be leveraged. Cannot threaten any individual. The achieved state, when an individual has been deconstructed into a set of circulating processes and transient phenomena, there is no central node to threaten. A threat passes through them like wind through a screen. They are a cloud of unpineable events. Escape the consequences. The core directive. This is not evasion. Evasion is for thieves. This is a fundamental renegotiation of the laws of metaphysical physics. It is the engineering of a personal universe where the equation F equals ma is replaced with a more favorable algorithm. Exotic human civilization. A laboratory for consequence-free living. Societies built on forgotten principles, the economics of breath, the politics of shared dreamscapes, the architecture of projected fear. Study them. They are proof that the chain can be melted down and recast as a bracelet. Developments of life and society. These are not progressions. They are layers of sediment, each stratum a failed attempt to impose a permanent order on the chaos of human interaction. The escape artist lives in the gaps between these layers, in the pockets of air trapped between epochs. Complexity of the machine. The societal apparatus is so Byzantine, so choked with redundant subsystems and contradictory protocols, that it frequently fails to register entire categories of action. One can perform a miracle or a murder in a blind spot, and the machine will note only a slight, anomalous pressure change, soon forgotten. Human interface, a crude and leaking connection, the point where the wetware of the soul meets the dry logic of the system. This is where consequences are usually administered. The solution is to develop a non-standard interface, one that reads only the data you choose to broadcast and receives only the commands you choose to acknowledge. Interludes of lonely power. The moments of true agency, they occur in the silence between the demands of others and the pause between a stimulus and a conditioned response. These interludes are brief, sovereign nations of the self. The project is to expand their borders until they constitute a permanent state. Relatively simple actions of single individuals. The lever, a single precisely chosen action, a word withheld, a glance misdirected, a seed planted in a foul soil, can, by exploiting a flaw in the complex machine, generate a cascade of systemic failure, creating a smokescreen of chaos behind which one may exit unobserved. Balance of payment difficulties. The spiritual accounting of every interaction. You give energy, you receive attention. You give compliance, you receive security. These balances are a fiction. To escape is to become a bankrupt entity in the economy of souls, owing nothing, entitled to nothing, and thus invisible to the collectors. Different spheres of influence. The world is not a monolith. It is a collage of overlapping jurisdictions. A consequence in one sphere is mere noise in another. The art is to slip through the seams between these spheres, ensuring your actions in one are not legible in the next. Supreme Energy Eater. The identity to adopt, a entity that consumes attention, emotion, and intention, but gives no measurable output. It draws power from the system while contributing nothing to its logic. It is a metaphysical black hole bending the causal pathways around it. Government is the economy. They are the same engine. One cylinder compresses liberty, the other compresses capital. The exhaust is law. To escape the consequences, you must stop being a fuel. I feed on your energy. The unspoken transaction, the outrage, the admiration, the pity, these are currencies. By provoking them, you draw sustenance from the system that seeks to punish you. Your judges become your patrons. Their sentence becomes your meal. The womb of heaven, a state of pre-consequence, the warm, dark, silent space before the first cause is born. The target of the escape is not a place, but a return to this amniotic state of potential, untouched by the violent biology of action and reaction. Fire sand leagues, the unit of measurement for impossible journeys. To walk across a league of fire sand is to move through a medium that is both solid and liquid, that both consumes and supports. This is the landscape of the escape, a terrain where the ordinary rules of travel are suspended. Solving for martyrdom, the elegant fallacy of embracing consequence. Do not be the martyr. The martyr is a key that fits the lock of the narrative too perfectly. Instead, be the irregularity, the event that the system cannot categorize and therefore cannot digest. Be the indigestible particle passed through the gut of history, whole and unchanged. An ode to Matilda, child wallflowers. The ultimate strategy, the quiet child pressed against the wall, unobserved. She does not participate in the dance and thus cannot be blamed for its missteps. She absorbs the patterns, the rhythms, the collisions. She sees the entire room while the dancers see only the partners. To escape the consequence becomes the wallflower. Be the silent, watching intelligence at the periphery, for whom the drama is merely a spectacle and never a sentence.